Welcome back to the Horror Academic, and this episode is going to be a little different. This is kind of a mashup episode. It is half an on the road and half an interview. So what I'd like to focus today on is two things. It's both the GARF and the Living Dead weekend. The first half of the episode is a quick interview that I was able to do with GARF founder Suzanne Romero, and the second half will be footage that I captured this summer going out to Pittsburgh area for the Living Dead weekend. Much the same as last year, I just felt the need to document the state of the mall and took a day ride out to Evans City, of course, while I was in the area to check on the cemetery. So I hope you guys enjoy some of that footage as well. Without further ado, here's the interview with Suze. I just want to welcome to the show today. I'm really excited. We have a guest from the George Romero Foundation, the GARF. We have Suzanne Romero with us. Suzanne,
Hello.
thank you so much for finding the time to talk with us today.
Well, it's my pleasure, of course.
Excellent. Let's start real simple. Can you please tell my audience what the GARF is?
Well, the acronym is GARF, but it's the George A Romero Foundation, and it's basically there to help support young filmmakers, and I don't mean to be ageist, just filmmakers, period, and also elevate the space of horror and to give a voice to the artists in the space, and also to keep George Romero's legacy relevant and alive, and make sure that he's in our conversations.
Which is super important to so many of us. And I mean, because he is kind of to me, I've always looked at George as a bit of a patron saint of how independent horror film can be done. It's that meshing together of the independent film world and the horror
Right.
film world, which a lot of people don't make that connection, but there's so many horror directors that were independent when they started, and George is a great example.
And here's the thing, it's very difficult to be independent, and it was easier for him early on. And as he built his career, it became more and more challenging to be independent. But he was resolute. Always had a concept that he wanted to have full sovereignty over his art, and sometimes that's difficult. But he tried his whole career to have control over his art.
And I think the phrase for me that sums this up is the independent spirit. And
Yeah,
that's very much the idea of, even when you do work with someone who's in the majors, you're still trying to keep it indie at heart. And I think that's what he
yeah.
looked to his career for.
So the higher the budget, the less sovereignty you have. So of course, we're all told that in order to be successful, you need to have big budgets and all of those. It's like the shining object, that
Mhm.
lures people into into their web. And I think that there's good reason to go there sometimes, because if you want to expose your art or your film to a bigger audience, you may have to go there. But George really wanted to keep it. I don't think he meant to just stay indie, like, per
Right,
se.
right.
I think he just said, I want to hang out with my people, and I want to have my own village to make my films. And for the most part, he did.
Yeah. And that doing it your way is hard to do the
It's
bigger it
hard
gets. Yeah.
to, the
Yep.
bigger it gets. You're a writer, you write, and then somebody says, "Well, I'd love to publish your work," and then you're excited, and then they try to change your work.
Yeah.
And in order to be a successful writer, you kind of have to compromise. So there's always compromise,
Hmm.
but as long as the compromising is fair to you and your work, then it's a good compromise.
Definitely. So my question about kind of how the Romero Foundation, how the GARF got really started then. So what made you kind of work towards this as a foundation?
Well, I was mourning George. I was, roaming the halls and wondering what I was going to do. And I kept, I kept receiving these um, huge, email chains about Pittsburgh and some of their, huge institutions wanted to celebrate George Romero. And I was ignoring them. And then I decided to accept one of the invitations. And there was a Zoom with 30 or 40 people, all representing their institutions, the Art Institution, Pittsburgh Film, et cetera, the Warhol, all these wonderful, significant institutions. And and I thought the Zoom really was ineffective.
Mm.
It just seemed anarchic to me. So then I decided to go to Pittsburgh to meet these folks. And again, we were on a round table, and again, I felt that it needed leadership. It needed an anchor. And so I decided that, maybe we should, Adam and I thought it might be a good idea to have this event called Romero Lives. And I started to take, sort of significant steps to leading the group towards this Romero Lives. And then a lot of these institutions are nonprofit. And so I think we need to have an entity that provides the funding and the sponsorships and all that was required to do this event. And so I applied for a 501c3, and I haven't looked back since. And at the time I thought, oh, okay, we'll have a foundation, and not really realizing how much work it really would take and how much effort it would take, not just for me, but for everyone around me. And then now I'm just one cog in a big place, an organization that's really, I mean, we're still small potatoes, but we will be a big potato one day, I'm sure of it. So we strive to do all the right things by George and by his legacy and by the filmmakers, and about horror. And the horror art, the horror archive is a big significant part of this. And also we're so excited about the horror center. We really want scholars like yourself to come and study and work on this, in this space, because it's not just about blood and guts, is it?
Right. Nope.
It's about storytelling, and it's also social commentary, and it's using horror as a metaphor. And that's what George did splendidly.
Yeah. That's what's great about his work. It's about people just in horrific situations, but it gives you that,
Exactly right.
it opens that door to talk about hard things.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the humans don't make some of the decisions that they do need to make. And in George's films, he keeps pointing that out, pointing it out. So, we get ourselves in a pickle, and we have so much in common, and we could in fact defeat or conquer the obstacle, but we get in the way.
Yes. People are always the biggest monsters in George's stories.
Well, that's another thing, is that George, for the first time in his, in that genre where the monsters were us, as opposed to a big hairy thing, so, or a small hairy thing.
Right. It's not in a big Gothic tower somewhere. Nope, it's your neighbor.
Exactly. It was your neighbor. It was the housekeeper. It was the chef, So, so again, that sort of twisted the world a little bit with Night of the Living Dead. Again, not particularly purposeful, but certainly thoughtful.
Yes.
And he loved monster movies. He enjoyed The Thing and all those fun, I call them boy movies, but that's just because I was just never really into them. But he loved them.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, it's that fan at heart. It gives it this kind of it adds the fun to it instead of it being kind of dry and
Well, he was
yeah,
fun. He's
yeah,
a fun guy.
always.
Yeah, yeah. He liked to play games and laugh, and he'd love to have fun.
Yep. And you guys are big board game fans, I know. So
We were definitely, yeah, definitely. And when you first start dating and you want to figure out if you're right for each other, one of the questions I had asked him was, do you play games? And he was like,
Mhm.
do I play games? I love to play games. I was like, oh, check. There was many checks, but
Yeah.
that one was big.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you brought up two things I want to talk about. The first one is you mentioned Adam. You remember, you also mentioned the kind of what's going on with Pitt University. Can you talk a little bit about that partnership?
Well, first of all, we when I had asked George about his legacy, he basically said, no one's really going to care, and which, even to this day, it just doesn't wash with me. And I was in Pittsburgh, like meeting some people, and Adam, kept saying to me, like, so, what are you going to do with his stuff? The scripts and the ephemera and all that. And I thought, well, I hadn't really thought about it because George hadn't really thought about it. And he says, well, I think maybe you should have a conversation with the library and see if maybe that could be something that might be of interest to you. And I thought, why not? First of all, it felt great that it was going to be in Pittsburgh. And I also thought, what's the point of having it in boxes in the corner? It didn't take long for me to realize that this was going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Peter and Tina, who had their share of, the stuff. And they all agreed. And they said, okay. So we had the conversations, and it was very obvious, very, very early, that this was the right place for it. And so now that you have a collection in a library, and so now you have an anchor, you have a name that, could in fact lure, or not, maybe lure is not the right word, but to let people know that there is a place that they can put their work after they go, that's going to keep it cherished and safe and vetted and just curated, and then have scholars actually take a look at it. Because I think horror now is becoming, slow by slow, inch by inch, a legitimate form of art, and it's worthy of study. And there's been many theses written about the subject. And so once the archive was set, we started getting little bits from others, and of course Adam is a scholar, and he's like, let's create a horror studies center. We would love that center to be called the George A Romero Horror Studies Center, but again, that takes money. You have to have all the proper funding to go through that, to have a bricks and mortar space. But we are working towards it, and there's continued interest. I'm actually popping into a French symposium in November, and speaking to French scholars about George Romero and his work. So inch by inch, the word is out that there's a collection. The word is out that others in this space need to perhaps deposit their art.
And that's important to mention also. Now that the foundation and the university have worked together to create that archive, there's other collections that have started as well. I know Daniel Krauss has his collection that's he started to add to. So that's great. It's for someone like me who looks forward to digging through those archives one day. I mean, it's a treasure trove. So I love that is there. And they've been doing great Zoom workshops discussing some individual items. So that's amazing too. So I'll put the links for that.
Great job. And he's first of all, he loves loves the work, loves the space, loves the fact that people are curious, not only just scholars, but people
Yeah.
are wanting to read these scripts and take a look at what they have, and it's there's nothing but positive here.
It's
It's
all
all
good
good.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of all good things, I also want to talk a little bit about the amusement park.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's.
I think I'm wearing my amusement park shirt
Oh,
today in
that's lovely.
honor, and
Yeah. No.
I have my Blu-ray here so we can
Oh,
talk about it because
you little girl.
I had to pre-order. I did.
Oh, of course you did. Listen, I could not be more thrilled because I don't know if you know the story of the beginnings. Do you want me to go through that?
Do you want me to sum up quickly? I
Yeah,
can help
go
out a little
ahead.
bit.
Yeah, sure.
Romero was part of a group of people who were working filmmakers, and part of that means making commercials, making as many know, he did segments for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, things like this. They were little working gigs,
Right.
and some of those were a bit larger. And this was a commissioned piece on the topic, but it seems that they gave it a kind of a big berth of room to interpret the topic how George felt it would be best portrayed. So the actual client for this piece, that was it Church of Latter-day Saints?
No, it was the Lutheran.
The
It was
Lutheran Church. Okay.
yeah, society. Yeah.
Okay. And so they asked for a piece about kind of how aging is looked at in our current society, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and it was a PSA, basically, a
Yes.
public service announcement to help educate people on some of the woes that the elderly were encountering, and and they hired George Romero, so they're going to get a George Romero slant on
Yeah.
this.
Which is
Uh,
surprising. Yes.
yeah, and he did the George Romero slant. Now, I actually think this may actually be one of George's most Romero of all the Romeros, because
Yes.
it is, first of all, you really see his unique editing style.
Yes.
Period.
Yep.
His shoestring, hardly, the script is like 5 words. There is no script. So how do you tell a story? And it's not an Academy Award film. It has flaws. That's really not the point, though, is it? It was a film done for $37,000 by an upstart filmmaker,
Yeah.
an American filmmaker, who's at the end of the day has a huge oeuvre, and this was a 58-minute PSA in a la Romero. And it's extraordinary. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, it's not, I can't say it's just not, it has flaws. I can just say that, but it is totally Romero in every way.
Yeah. I mean, I've read many reviews that say this is possibly the scariest film he ever made. And
well, because it's human, and it's,
yeah.
again, not monsters at all.
Right.
It's just the reality of aging, and it's not fun, and
No.
it's scary, and we're all going there.
Yes.
So there's no escaping this way. So it's I find it not so much scary, but ugly is the word I use when I see this. I find it ugly and so icky.
Yeah, it's truthful though. It
Truthful.
shows our underbelly, and
Yeah.
that's what society is, and what he did so well.
Yeah, and 72, you can actually do that same movie again about today's elderly, and it's relevant, which is way, way unfortunate. I mean,
literally, only thing that would change was there wouldn't be bell bottoms. I think everything else would be the same.
That's right.
Yeah,
and the equipment in the therapy space might be better.
A little bit better. I don't know if they have the budget to make it much better, but a little bit better, yes.
Yes, but the obstacles and the dismissiveness of the youth and all of that still exists, and it's such a shame. Shame on us.
Yeah.
Shame on us.
But it's also, as a film, as a film historian, it's a hidden gem that you were able to help bring to all of us, because it's one of those things, you know, we might have seen it on lists of you know, different clients he worked with and things like that, but to know that we can see such a, you know, a work that's so truthful like that and so raw,
Yeah.
it's
So
great.
again, Adam comes into play because, you know, I saw the film with George a few weeks before he passed, and
Yeah.
you know, I was like, oh my God, like you never even mention it. He goes, oh no, I but it's nothing. So I, you know, and then when he passed, I said to Adam, I want you to take a look at this little thing, because it, to me, it seems like we should do something about it. And as soon as he saw it, he totally agreed.
Yeah.
So once I had his affirmative reaction, I thought, okay,
Yeah.
let's get this out there. Easier said than done. It took me
Yeah.
almost 3.5 years to do, but you know, chain of title was not easy, but we did it. And but Adam again was the one who said, yes, it's worthy, do it. And
Yep.
so yeah, we did it.
Yep. I remember I got to interview Daniel Kraus when the book came out, when Living Dead came out, and we
Yeah,
discussed he was a big champion as well, as you know,
yeah.
showing this really, it's one of those things in the vault that just really
Well,
shows
and he
the
was one of the people who actually knew it existed, you know,
yeah,
because there were certain people that did know that it existed. So it wasn't exactly lost. It was
right.
just never sort of taken out and sort of exposed.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Dan, I got, you know, I was really freaked out because Dan was very into it, and he at one point writes, "This is the most horrific," and I'm like, "Oh my God, Dan,
Yes.
calm down," because I
But
don't want people to miss. I don't want this to be misrepresented.
right.
Was my fear,
He
and
meant it in a good way, but
he
yeah,
did,
it
but
could
I
be
was
read
just
the
like,
wrong way.
"Whoa, cowboy, you
Yeah.
need to slow this down," because
We want this to be for all audiences to
yeah,
see.
and
Yeah.
there's not everyone's gonna like it. You know, if you're
Yeah.
a zombie guy or gal and you're really not into this sort of thing, you just go, yeah, boring, you know. But if you're a Romero elitist or a Romeroist, you're going to appreciate it.
Yep.
So
Definitely. There's definitely a crowd of us that was, you know, anticipating it once
yeah,
it was kind of known it was coming. So happy that
right.
it
And
was there.
all those interviews that I did you know, getting it out there, everyone was so positive, so keen on it coming out. So I my fears were allayed quite a bit. But I still read, you know, I still read reviews that go, you know, like, okay, we knew it was not for everybody, you know.
Well, George's filmography is not for everyone when you look at
Well,
it as a
that's true.
whole. Yeah, I mean, Martin and Season of the Witch does not always ring so solidly with the fans of just Dawn and Day. And I
Right,
mean,
right,
he's a diverse style within a genre. So
right.
that's one of his wonderful things. So speaking of the fans, I wanted to ask, how can fans of Romero's work, how can we help the foundation? What can we do to help all these things come to be?
Well, there's, you know, first of all, we always ask for volunteers. So, you know, if you have a skill set that we could take advantage of, we generally do, because we have so many needs in terms of skills, and but also money. You know, we're always with a tin cup in our hand, you know, and it doesn't mean 3,000. It could be $3, or it could be $10, or it could just, you know, write a positive note. You know, it just means that you need to be aware of what we're doing, be positive towards it. If you want to help, we'd be more than happy to accept your help. If you wanted to give us a little change or some money, we would be grateful, because, you know, we need to keep the lights on. Without money, I'm afraid we can't move on. So, you know, when we give a scholarship to a young student to create, you know, work in their world, it takes money. You know, so it's easy to say, let's support the independents, but you have to support them. And it takes money, unfortunately, to buy equipment, or to buy mentorships, or to buy books, or, you know, they just need help. So
Well,
yeah, our tin cup is there.
and I'll make sure that links are provided for that. So if you guys
Thank
want to
you.
give donations, and also Another way also, that money gets there, there's some merchandise that's commemorating George and
Oh,
his
this
films,
so people like the merch,
Yeah.
they put it on their knapsacks or they buy a t-shirt or,
Yep.
stuff. I was always initially reluctant because I didn't want to be a retailer, essentially.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if that's what it takes for me to give a young or a filmmaker a little something to help them make their movie, then that's what we do.
I mean, and it's a win-win on our side because we get a little token
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we're helping at the same time. So
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So, and it's all good stuff. It's all
Yeah.
good quality, and everybody likes a t-shirt. Everybody
Yeah.
likes a pin,
I think
so.
I'm wearing my Night
Oh,
Riders anniversary
are.
hoodie.
Oh, we
Yeah,
love you, Victoria. Oh my
I,
goodness.
I had to prep for, I had to get in the mood to have this discussion
R-
today.
Right. Or
Well, I know you have a real busy day, a real busy weekend planned. GARF is really busy this weekend on a project, so
yes, we are. We're in the throes.
yes. But I thank you so much for taking a little
Oh,
time out to talk with us.
always my pleasure, Victoria. You're lovely, and yeah, anything I can do to help, I would be more than happy.
Well, that's gonna make me smile for days. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank
And
you.
it was
Take
great.
it easy.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Here's a look at the Monroeville Mall and Evans City Cemetery that I've shot this summer during Living Dead weekend. Hello from the Monroeville Mall. This is the Horror Academic. cemetery. Thanks again for tuning in this month, and I hope you enjoyed the interview, the location footage, and I will see you next time on the Horror Academic.